And hello, those who have come back. Starting Successful Conversations. It is good to see you all again. Again, for those who don't remember, my name's Derek Smith. You were in my job search session just a couple of hours ago. I really do appreciate all of you coming back and staying throughout the day. That is totally and completely awesome. Thank you so much. Once again, who's joining us here will be Debbie. So Debbie's going to be handling a lot of your chats. Once again, most of the communication will be done through our chat feature. Q&A, we will hold off that to the end unless absolutely necessary. Hopefully my chat feature will stay up this time. Zoom's been acting kind of funny with that. But if I do lose the chat feature, Debbie will be awesome in helping me understand what you're all trying to say to me. So, successful conversations. What you're going to need for this workshop today is this handout that was in your package. So it's the hello, my name is 2-page component. First page, a little bit of example. Second page is a chance for you to write yours. I'll describe in a little bit what you'll be needing with that. But let's talk a little bit about conversations. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of chat for this next one. You can plug this in the chats. So let's pretend you're going to an actual real life interview, okay? That's the whole purpose behind what we're talking about, obviously, is getting it eventually to that interview. And here's the situation. You know, you come into the place, you meet the person, and they go ahead and they ask you the #1 most hated question in the interview. This is the question for most people that you hope they don't ask. It is the top of the list for the most hated questions for most people. So in the chat, go ahead and write, what do you think the most hated interview question is? Go ahead and throw that in there. Just give it a few moments there.
Tell me about yourself.
Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Yeah, tell me about
why should we hire you? Strengths and weaknesses.
But overall, we're going to say it's tell me about yourself. Am I correct on that one? I mean, weaknesses is #2 on the list. #3 typically is what are your salary expectations. But tell me about yourself. Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. And when it comes to meeting with individuals, of course, for the first time, you get to meet with them. You say, hi, my name is. Hi, my name is. And then they say those dreaded words. Tell me about yourself. This was a tough one. I mean, what do you actually say to these people, right? Do you say to them, hi, my name is Derek. I like the color blue, and I take long walks on the beach. Is that something you share with them? You know, probably not, but it's difficult to know how to actually begin these conversations, what to say about yourself, and how to get the conversation going. Because the one thing we're all afraid about is, you know, first of all, not knowing what to say to a person, but saying the wrong thing that, you know, doesn't create that connection that we were talking about earlier. So before we jump into actually what to say, what we're going to do is look at what not to say. Some of you might recognize who this is. This is Russell from the movie Up. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and share with you maybe how we should not necessarily introduce ourselves.
Order now. You get the camera, you get the printer, 4x optical zoom, Schneider lens, photo printer, SD card.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer in Tribe 54, Sweat Lodge 12. Are you in need of any assistance today, sir?
No.
I could help you cross the street.
No.
I could help you cross your yard.
No.
I could help you cross your porch.
No.
Well, I gotta help you cross something.
No, I'm doing fine.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer.
All right. That's awesome. I love Russell. So Russell, right? We love him. He's cute, nice kid. But what happened there, right? He knocks on the door and he just starts talking. Now, let's talk about a couple things that Russell did correctly, right? Russell was prepared. You know, he seemed to have good intentions. There was, you know, no malice or ill intent on his behalf. But what happened there? My question to all of you is, was there a conversation that actually happened there in that introduction? Probably not, right? We see that Russell just started talking. He just started going and going, and there was that lack of connection, that lack of relationship between the two of them. Now, as much as cute as Russell is, and as much as we like him, we have to ask ourselves a question of, you know, how can we not do that, right? How can we come across differently where the person actually does want to speak to us? And I know for many of you, there's a couple of different concerns that you might have when it comes to introducing yourselves or how to start that conversation. One of the first ones is, of course, that you have no idea what to say. So you won't say anything at all, because why make the mistake? I know some of you might be afraid that you're going to come across too salesy, that you might, you know, be pushy, and you don't want to necessarily do that either. So how do we begin conversations? How can we start in a conversation in which the person would want to continue to talk to us and create that genuine connection? Because back in Jobsters Essentials, which I shared with you a couple of hours ago, one thing I talked about was that networking is about building relationships. It's about creating that conversation, that mutual street between both of you. And in the case of Russell here, there wasn't really that mutual street. It was just a dumping of information. So let's look at a few ways of how we can actually create that good conversation. Now, with this next part, I'm going to need Debbie's help. Debbie, you there for me?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. So one great way to begin a conversation is by asking great questions. So let's look at a couple of different questions here, and you tell us which one let myself and Debbie have more of a conversation with. Okay, so here's question one. Debbie, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue. Thank you. Debbie, why is blue your favorite color?
I love a lot of things that are in nature that are blue. So I love the sky. I love water.
Where are some of your favorite places to go out to in nature?
Walking by the lake, the park.
And how often do you get to go outside?
As often as I want, as long as the weather permits me to do so.
Oh, where are
now,
some of
with
your
social distancing and bugs, it's limiting.
difficult, isn't it? Where are your summer favorite places to visit?
Anywhere tropical, anywhere hot. So the Caribbean, Europe. I love to travel in general. I will pick interesting places. And the Caribbean and Europe would be my favorites. And I mean all over Europe.
Where have you been to?
Greece, Turkey, Spain, Italy, Jamaica.
Wow, you've been to quite a few places.
Martin.
Oh my goodness.
Puerto Rico.
Excellent.
Mexico.
Wow, Debbie, you've been everywhere. You're making me jealous. Okay, we'll end it there. Thank you. Question to everybody who's listening. I asked her two types of questions. The first one was, what is your favorite color? And the second one is, why is blue your favorite color? Which of the two questions gave us more information about who Debbie actually is? Question one or question two? Go ahead and throw that in the chat. The second question? Second, number two. Obviously number two. Okay, we got it there, of course. And here's the difference between the two of them. The first question is known as a closed-ended question. What is your favorite color? Now, the thing is, when we often begin conversations, we are comfortable with starting off with what's known as a closed-ended question. Now, closed-ended questions are defined as questions that require a one-word answer. Typically speaking, yes or no, okay? You know, do you like pineapple on your pizza? Yes or no? Okay, or some people might say, yes, that's awesome. Some people might say that's disgusting. We're not going to get into pineapple and pizza debate. But my point being is closed-ended questions are basically designed to get one-word answers. Now, the concern with closed-ended questions is many of us begin our conversations with that. How are you today? I'm fine. Okay, so it doesn't get much information out. It just simply answers things. Now, closed-ended questions do have a point. They do have a purpose in conversation. So, for example, do you prefer the red one or the blue one? And sometimes we do require that one-word answer. However, when it comes to developing a conversation, when it comes to creating a great connection with someone, open-ended questions are an excellent way to create a connection. All I did basically with Debbie, as you noticed, was I just asked her open questions. I asked her why blue was her favorite color. And I did something very important called active listening. I was actually listening to what she was saying and picking up on some important points, and then asked her another open question based upon something she had said. And within a few moments, I was able to find out a lot of information about her, a lot about her personality, which was able to create a great connection. Now, as someone had once taught me, that one great way to have someone feel that you're very important is to have them feel like that they're very important. What that basically means is by me asking a lot of questions to Debbie and finding out about her like this and having a genuine interest in knowing these things about her, what this was doing is having you feel kind of good. It's like, oh, I'm getting to talk about myself. Even the quote-unquote shyest person loves to share things about themselves of interest. We all have that thing about us. And for Debbie, it is obviously traveling. Debbie, you love traveling, I guess, huh?
Yes.
And I bet you can't wait till COVID-19's done. I'm getting out of here, right?
Maybe a couple years, but.
But
yeah,
this gives us an idea of who she is, a little bit about her. So one great trick for starting a conversation with someone is ask a great open question. So let's say you are, when this is all done and this is all finished, and you do go to an event or you do get to bump into someone, using keen observational skills, ask an open question about something that can get them interested to want to know more. So ask questions. And if you are at a busy event or if you're kind of nervous, ask questions. This is a great way for someone to feel warm up to you, to create that great connection. And again, do that active listening component. That's the important part here. So I was actually listening to what she was saying and then asking another question based upon that. There is a handout that you all received. I just got to pull it up here. There we go. We're not going to go through it necessarily at the moment, but you all received this handout, Scripts for Starting a Conversation. We're not going to go through this right now due to time, but this is something you can use later on when you're in a situation, and you can have some guides here of things you can bring up in order to speak to someone. So that's a handout that you all did receive. You can take a look at that later on. But let's come back to here. So questions, great way to begin a conversation. Debbie gets warmed up to me. We're feeling kind of good. We're feeling comfortable with each other. But then it happens. We've gotten comfortable. I found out lots about Debbie. And then Debbie turns around to me and goes, oh, wow, you know so much about me. So Derek, why don't you go ahead and tell me about yourself? And this takes us back to the initial concern that we had at the beginning of this presentation. The number one most dreaded question out there, tell me about you and how to introduce yourself. So let's talk about that a little bit, okay? A great way is to develop something known as a 30-second profile. Something that you can use to introduce yourself in about 30 seconds. Now, why do we recommend 30 seconds? It's an arbitrary number, but it has been shown that, typically speaking, when you're meeting someone for the first time, you really got about 30 seconds to make that connection with them. Think about it. Whenever you meet someone for the first time, you're, I don't want to say necessarily judging them, but you're getting to know them, you're making decisions about them, and that initial impression makes a decision for you of, do I want to continue getting to know this individual, or do we just end the relationship where it stands? And it has been shown that you got really 30-ish seconds to make that connection with an individual, and for have them look at you and say, wow, that's interesting, can you tell me more? If you can get a person to the point that when they say to you, that is interesting, can you tell me more, you've really done a great job. So that's the whole point behind this 30 seconds. And now it sounds like, like, oh my gosh, how can I do that? But again, this is the introduction. This is the what do you say about yourself to create the connection. And that's what we're trying to do here, is to create that connection and then have the conversation develop from there. So when can you use this profile? Well, cold calling. Someone brought up today that this is one of their least favorite forms of job search. Now, cold calling isn't done as much as it used to be. It is taken on different forms. For example, let's say LinkedIn, when you're talking to someone, but it definitely can happen. A job fair, for sure. We ran a very large job fair back earlier in the year. I'm not sure if any of you had a chance to go to it. It was fantastic. We had over 1,000 students go to it. And in that job fair, for those who did get to go, some of those employers had lineups, and you really had about 30 seconds with some of them to be able to talk about yourself. And you had to remember that in that job fair, some of those employers received several hundred resumes that day. So it was the opportunity for those individuals to create that great connection. Any kind of networking events. For some of you, you've been to some of our UTSC networking events. Once this is all done with the COVID stuff, we will get back into that. And you will have access for that up to 2 years after your graduation for some of that. So any events that we're running, you're welcome to come to those for registration. Or if there's an event happening out there as well, you're welcome to come to those. But networking events is a great place to connect with individuals. I already mentioned earlier something called the informational interview. This is when you're speaking to someone who is in a field that you're interested in learning more about. And this is when they will look at you and say, great, tell me about yourself. Let me get to know you. And there's other informal settings as well. Gym, hair salon, again, these are all things that happen once life returns to normal. But there are many opportunities when you will connect with individuals who will want to get to know you. And the question becomes is, what do you say? So what can you include in your profile? Now, this is sample things that you can include. So for example, your name, obviously, if you haven't shaken hands yet and introduced yourself, but these are things you can think about, such as your academic background, your studies. But here's some other things: future interests, skills, qualities. Once you get into this a little bit further, requesting your goal, like, oh, I see that you are the director of this department. I was wondering if you could tell me more about that. And we'll look at the strong close as well. Of that's basically what we call a call to action, or the next step in the conversational process. Now, the thing about your profile, and this is something that is important for you to remember, is your profile is very fluid. And what I mean by that is it needs to change and adapt depending upon your situation and whom it is you're speaking to. So for example, if you're speaking to, let's say, a hiring manager, you might speak about yourself differently than you would, let's say, to someone who's a peer or an alumni within your program. Now, one thing I want you to remember as well is also the situation that you're presenting this. Why do I bring this up? So I do a lot of mock interviews with our students. It's one of our more popular services. And as I mentioned before, I've done recruitment in the past. And one of the first questions I usually open up with is, tell me about yourself, the one that you all dread. And it's one that I tend to use when I open up. Do you know what about 90% of students say to me when I say, tell me about yourself? About 9 out of 10, roughly. When I would say, tell me about yourself, I would say about 9 out of 10 students will look at me and say, I'm a 4th year biology student studying in the following areas, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Or I'm a student studying finances and I am taking the following courses, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Or I'm an English major and this is what I'm taking, da-da-da-da-da-da. About 90% of students will start off talking about their academic background. Now, is this bad? No, by no means. But as I said, you need to also consider the situation that you're in when you're giving your profile. What do I mean by that? Let's go back to my earlier example of the job fair that we ran at UTSC a few months ago. As I said, we had over 1,000 students attend that job fair. So if 90% of students begin with talking about their program and academic area of study, and if they're in, let's say, the job fair, what do you think those employers are going to hear over and over again? That they're a student and what year they're in. And in a situation such as that, yes, it's obvious that you are a student. So it's not that talking about you're a student at the beginning is necessarily a bad thing, but if you sound like 90% of everybody else in a situation where everybody else is also a student, you might see the potential concern. You would sound like everyone else. Now, your program might be different than somebody else's. But the fact that leading off with your student would, unfortunately, in that scenario where everybody else is one as well, might lose a little bit of value. It's not that you wouldn't talk about being a student, but in those situations, like I said, you'd be fluid, be adaptable. Maybe save that for the middle of your story. Maybe start off with something different. Maybe not necessarily the program, but what interests you about that field. Maybe start off with an interesting anecdote about yourself. Instead, again, being adaptable. Now, let's say you're in a situation in which being a student is not very common. Let's say you go to another job fair where there's a mixture of individuals. Well, then talking about being a new grad might be a great way to begin. It's up to you to judge the situation you're in and decide, where do I begin? How do I start? Where out of these things that are listed here should I start with? Because remember, you have that 30 seconds to make the impression, and you want them to be interested to know more about you. So some places, yes, begin talking about your student and your background. In some places, maybe something else. So you might be wondering, what are those other things to say about me? Well, we just heard Reggie talk a whole lot of other things about yourself, about what makes you unique and what makes you stand out. He was challenging you to think about those things. And part of the process is to understand what those things are about you that maybe you can lead off with. We also talked about the Holland Code, myself and Wei, earlier on today. And there are certain attributes that maybe are there if you're an investigative person. For example, let's say you chose investigators, one of your higher ones. Tell me about yourself. I'm a curious person. I just love to learn. I'm a researcher and I love to dig into data. If you're more of the entrepreneurial side of things, you ended up on that side of the Holland Code. Tell me about yourself. I'm a go-getter. I love business. I love small business. I like to see what's new out there and take a risk. Tell me about yourself. You're a social person. I'm all about people. I like to connect with other people, find out about them, and see what's the best way of serving them. Do you see how those different introductions, depending upon who you are, has a different connection and a unique way of creating that relationship and that instant connection with someone? So I want you to start thinking about those things about yourself, of how can you make that connection? What are those things about you that you can say that is you? Unique and different. And again, not to say you won't talk about your school, but maybe in the middle of your story. I'm an entrepreneur person. I like to take risks. That's one of the reasons I went into finance and capital markets. See, that maybe that's the way you can make a connection. Each of you will have your own way of doing this. But I want you to challenge you to think about those things. Now, here's an example for a phone inquiry. Okay, again, we don't do phones that often. But here's an example of one. So, hi, my name is Jane Doe. Now, remember we talked about networking before. Sometimes you have a connection right away. I got your name from my cousin. So one thing great about networking, and one thing we'll explore tomorrow is how to expand your network, is if you get referrals from individuals. I'm contemplating my degrees in economics at the University of Toronto. We'll convocate this June. Running investment situations. So here is something where you can talk about features of interest, skills, and expertise. Something unique. I've been running investment simulations since first year, focused on securities. Our products have been doing well. So this is where you can provide something unique about you. So wondering if I could have a moment to speak about regarding work at TD Securities. This is a good time to talk, and then the close is, can we spend some time together? Point being, you'll notice that there were some specifics that were mentioned there. Now, as a phone example, and again, as I mentioned, your profile will be adaptive depending upon your situation. So when we start looking at the different profiles and we start looking at your personal one, remember that these are going to be guides. As we found out earlier from today, self-awareness is one of the biggest things that employers look for. Individuals who understand truly who they are is one of the top things that they want. And we heard that earlier this morning. So this is part of the process of understanding who you are. So what we're going to do now is we get to look at some actual examples of profiles. This is something put together by an organization known as PwC, a very large consulting firm known as one of the big four accounting firms. And we're going to take a look at some fellow students of how they've introduced themselves. And well, let's just have fun with this. Let me go ahead and open this up here. I just need to, there we go.
Hi, my name is James, and I'm a finance major.
Hi, my name is James and I'm a finance major.
Hi, I'm Andrea and I'm a business major.
Hi, I'm Joe and I'm an accounting major. Hi, I'm Joe and I'm an accounting major.
I'm it. And so I'm the oldest out of 5 kids. I'm the president of the Organization of African Students. My leadership experience has prepared me for my career. I have been the residence assistant for 3 consecutive years, the head teller at my local bank. Also, I have been the president of the Organization of African Students. I have volunteered a lot of time at my local church. And lastly, I'm the oldest out of 5 kids. I can handle anything.
Hi, I'm Pat. I'm an accounting and philosophy major. I didn't really love accounting, but I fell in love with philosophy when I first got to school. And I also was very into my intramural hockey team. Hi, my name's Pat. I'm an accounting and philosophy major. Now you might be asking yourself, well, that's a strange combination. But what I loved about it was that I used my creativity in my philosophy major, and I got a great management experience in my accounting. I think this is going to be a great mix for when I start in the business world.
Majoring in business, I got to take a lot of different classes. I studied accounting, I had finance, IT, there were statistics, marketing too. But I also took classes in art history and English because I wanted to have a well-rounded education. I didn't want to be too narrow. So I did that. I did a lot of stuff outside of the class too. I played some intramural volleyball, which was really fun. I'm a business major, but I've also taken a lot of liberal arts classes to round out my education. In addition to my studies, I've been a peer mentor to a younger classmate, as well as played on the intramural volleyball team. While they may seem like different activities, they both helped me with my communication skills as well as my team building.
So, do you like me?
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed watching my videos as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you for your time.
There we go. Okay. So those are some examples of individuals who introducing themselves. And what I like about this video is it shows both sides of, how to introduce yourself and ways to improve on that. And there were some things that we definitely noticed with some of them. What we noticed in some of the other beginning ones is a lot of them were, again, unstructured. They were sharing lots of information, but it was just, and I hate to say this, stuff. It was just a lot of stuff. And the problem with this stuff is it can be disorganized, not really related, just kind of here and there. And then with the second try around, we can see how that quote unquote stuff was put into more something concrete with good examples and personality. So for example, what I mean by personality is the lady we have here in the front of the example here. She was going on about her different experiences that she had. But I liked at the end how she said, I'm the oldest of 5 kids that can handle anything. Don't be afraid to show a little bit of personality in there, because as soon as you see that, it's like, great, I've connected with this individual. You'll notice that on a lot of the second attempts with a lot of the examples there, they were putting their personal spins on it, their own different components into it. And they all were a little bit different in what they were focusing on. Some were focusing on their extracurricular activities, some of them were focusing on their courses. There's a lot of different areas you could focus on. So this is where being, again, fluid, adaptable, and flexible in your presentations really, really can be beneficial to you. Now, another thing I do want to bring up when it comes to presenting yourself is about how you actually look when you actually do this. Now, I know in a COVID-19 world, this is going to be a little bit different because a lot of our interactions will be virtual. However, the suggestions I will be giving to you will actually have a great impact still in how you connect with other individuals. Because here's the thing about communication. Now, depending on the psychological study you read on this, different statistics, different percentages, but basically this is what it comes down to. we communicate on 3 different levels when it comes to individuals. We communicate by what we say. That is the script, the actual words themselves. And whenever I'm conducting a mock interview with a student or helping them put together a profile, most of them are concerned about what do I actually say. But there's 2 other parts when it comes to communicating. What we say is just the first part. And actually, on the pure statistical level, it's actually the least important part of communication because there's 2 other factors. The second one is how we say it. This is our verbalization. This is what people are hearing from us. This is our tone, cadence, speed, and volume. And then there's the third part of communication. And on a pure statistical level, this is the one that probably stands out the most for most people. And that is simply our body language. This is what people are seeing about us. This is what people are actually processing through their eyes. Now, as people, we communicate and receive all 3 of these at the exact same time. However, we do place, like I said, different importances on them. And if we are doing a quote-unquote face-to-face, which when we get to meet people again, or even through a webcam such as this, body language is going to be number 1. We make most determinations about people based upon what we're seeing about them. Second will come down to how we're hearing them, what we're hearing. That's, again, the cadence, the tone, all those things. And finally, the script. I've had students have the most perfect scripts. They've said the most perfect things. And yet by how they presented themselves, it totally went downhill. What do I mean by that? So let's say, you know, I'm a candidate for a second, okay? Actually, let's try this. Debbie, you up for something?
Sure.
Okay, you can interview me for a second, okay?
Okay.
Now, I want everybody to be fellow interviewers just to watch this response. Okay, Debbie, I just want you to ask me to tell me about myself.
Hi, Garrick. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, great communicator. Get along with people. I'm outgoing. I'm organized. Really good at organizing myself. Yeah. Okay, let's end it there. All right. Okay, be honest. Everybody in the chats, how was that response? Did you believe a word I said? No. Great actor, someone called me. Fantastic. Dull. Okay. My ego is just no, I didn't. I mean, I did it on purposely, right? Definitely great communicator. I can sense the sarcasm right from
dull, Derek, dull. That
okay.
came across dull.
Okay. Now, part 1. Were the right words said? Yes. All the key buzzwords were in there. What was the problem? The delivery. Okay. You can ask all the right questions, as I talked about at the beginning. You could have the great 30-second profile, which we'll be creating in a few moments. But if we're not delivering it in such a way that creates connections with individuals, it doesn't matter. Now, some of you are thinking, oh, I'm not the greatest communicator. I'm very shy, you know. This is not my big thing. And I understand that. I understand that. But we can all do this. And you know what the greatest way to create a connection with somebody is? Smiling. 100%. How do we feel when someone smiles at us? Genuinely smiling, right? Don't we feel better? Don't we feel an instant connection to that individual? Don't we just think like, wow, you know, I feel good about that. I mean, how do we feel when we smile? Right? I always feel better when I smile. And what I've noticed is individuals who smile when they speak, they tend to sound better. You just can't help it. You have higher energy levels. And they tend to have better answers. So if we want to get down to the communication component and how to create that great first connection, why not just smile right from the beginning when you start talking about yourself? It's an instant way, and it's the universal language of connection. Let me tell you a bit of a story. So one of my previous places I used to work at was at Ryerson University, and they have a nutritionist program there, and it's hugely competitive. It's one of the most competitive programs I've ever seen in this nutritionist program. And I did an internship in this program, and there was this one internship that everybody wanted to get into. If you got into this internship, you were set. Like your career was in front of you. And because of that, this internship had over a 90% turn down rate, okay? Over 90% turn down rate because, because this was just a great one to get into. So I was helping out a student who got an interview, so congratulations to them. On the academic levels, they had everything that this employer was looking for this internship. And they decided to do the mock interview with me. So we did the mock interview. And in the mock interview, academically, they were superior. Their GPA was fantastic. All the technical skills were there. They were highly intelligent. On paper, they were just hitting all the check marks. But when we did the interview, the entire time we were talking, her voice was shaking. Her voice was quivering. She couldn't look at me the entire time. And although academically superior, with a 90+% turn down rate, in my honest opinion, in my professional opinion, I couldn't see how they would accept her, especially going into something like nutrition when you have to work a lot with people. So I had to let her know that although I felt on a technical level she was fantastic, on that presentation level, it wasn't. I don't think she'd be able to make it in. And I wanted to let her know that because I wanted her to get in. And this probably, in my opinion, was one of the things that would stop her. And she knew it. It's one of the reasons she did a mock interview with me, is because she knew that she was worried and that her communication skills, according to her, weren't the greatest. So what did we do? I gave her some advice. She had 2 weeks until her interview. And I told her in this 2 weeks, here's what she had to do. I wanted her to practice smiling. Just smile everywhere. Just practice smiling with people. Just get used to it. Get used to just making eye contact with individuals, and get used to smiling at people, and get used to smiling when you spoke, and just do it everywhere. Now, this individual, it was black or white for them. It was a yes or no situation. They really had no choice here. It was either succeed or don't. So she understood that this is what had to be done. So they said, you got 2 weeks, just get used to smiling, enjoy it, learn how to, I gave her some tips on how to present herself, obviously, and how to focus on her accomplishments, but how to present it in such a way that it was believable. About a month later, I received a thank you card, and she got in. And in her card, she had said that she took my advice, and for 2 weeks straight, she did nothing but smile and talk to people. And during her interview, her voice didn't shake once. She got in. And it's one of my happiest stories because I saw where she was and then where she went to. And if that person could do it, who couldn't even look at me during the interview, whose voice was shaking, and if she's putting the effort into it, I'm confident all of you could do the same. But again, it's effort that's going to be put in, something to practice. So here's the situation now is we're here, right? This is how the reality is going to be for the next little bit. In that article I mentioned earlier on today in my workshop about the reality of how to do job search in COVID-19 is that most of your interviews will take place like this. That if you're connecting with people on LinkedIn, it will take place over things such as this. For now, eventually you will get to meet people again. But here's where you can still do it as well. In fact, this is even more of a challenge, to be honest with you, because you don't necessarily get the same feedback you would seeing the person face to face. So you can still practice this. Again, within our sessions that you can book with us, we will give you feedback if you choose to do it over webcam and how you're looking. We also have a tool under student resources called Big Interview. So you want to check that out under student resources in CLN called Big Interview. You can record yourself on that and see how you look. Practice smiling. In fact, in Microsoft, if you have I don't know what Mac, I don't know what Mac has, I'm sure they do. They have the app, but I know in PC they have a camera app in which you can pull it up and record yourself. And let me tell you something, I'm being honest, I'm presenting to you. I've been using that camera app for the past week, recording myself, seeing how I look, and getting used to speaking to webcams. So try out these things and get used to it, because above all else, doesn't matter how good your script is, if you can't present it in such a way that makes the connection, it doesn't matter how good it's written. So get comfortable with whom you are. I'm not saying don't be someone you're not. What I'm saying is be the best you possible when it comes to these situations. Be the best you. And I'm confident that you can all do that. So things to think about to go into your profile. Well, first of all, let's look a bit at who you are. What are the words that describe you? Again, I gave you some examples earlier on about those components. Look at the handouts from the Holland Code and see words that really speak to you that can describe you. Your accomplishments, components about who you are. What makes you you? What makes you stand out? What is something you've worked on that's exciting and interesting? And what are your strengths? But remember this as well. Again, your profile is fluid. Whom are you speaking to? Who is your audience? You'll say things differently to different people depending on the situation as well. So it's important for you to know whom are you talking to and how to adjust what you're going to say about yourself. And the bottom point I really enjoy is, I really like yours, is what information will appeal to them. One thing about going back to Russell's introduction at the beginning is he was just dumping information. He was just saying whatever, and it doesn't create the connection. So what you want to do when you're thinking about yourself is, what is some things I can say about myself that will appeal to this individual? Does this require more thought to put this together? It certainly does. But as we heard from this morning's presentation, again, that self-awareness component is one of the big things employers are looking for. So here's what we're going to do. Yes, you knew this was to come. Is it going to give you an opportunity to write out your profile? Okay. So you all have that handout I showed you at the beginning. So I want you to go ahead and pull that out. And what I'm going to do is a couple things. Let me give you the instructions first. I'm going to give you, we're at, maybe, let's say 5 or 6 minutes to write out your own profile. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to write out the profile. Here's the situation. So I'm going to put you in the situation because, as I said, situation is important, so context important. So here's the context. COVID-19 is over, it's done, it's finished, life has moved back to normal. You're at a networking event at UTSC, okay, with other students, so keep that in mind. Everybody else at this event is a student, so you got to think back to what I was saying earlier about that. And I'm an employer who's at this event that you really, really want to speak to. I work for a company that you've really been wanting to work for a long time. We bump into each other. You ask me some really great questions, get me engaged in conversation, and then I look at you and I say, oh, so tell me about yourself. So again, the situation is, it's a UTSC networking event where there are other students there. I'm an employer that you want to meet. We bump into each other and I say, tell me about yourself. I'm going to give you, let's say, about 5 minutes to write out this presentation. And then we're going to come back to the room here, to our section here, and I'm going to ask for 1, maybe 2 volunteers, depending on time, who wants to talk to me. Okay? So I'm going to, again.
Before you go, Derek, someone wants to know if you can put the slide back up for the activity.
Oh, which slide it was?
Yes, please.
Let's see. I don't know if I have that open. It's at the beginning of our presentation. Let me see. I might actually have it open. If you can give me a second here. No, I'm afraid I don't. It says it's the 30-second profile 1. I thought I had it open. I do not.
Yeah, it was the slide before. Can we go back a couple slides?
I'm going to go back a couple slides?
Yeah. It was the slide before. Just give me a second. Let me just scroll up for a minute.
Obviously, this one? Okay, so there's some things you can think about.
Yes, that's the right one.
Okay, so let me give you, again, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to go ahead and put together your presentation. And then I'm going to ask for 1 to 2 volunteers, depending on time, to go ahead and speak to me. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself here in my video. I'm going to put some nice music on again for you to work with, and we'll come back at 6:05.
could you confirm that we're using the draft and elevator pitch handout?
Sorry. Yes, you're using the draft and elevator pitch handout, the one I showed at the beginning of the presentation. One minute. 1 minute. We'll come back and find out about you.
Eric, there was a question. Should people strive to answer all the questions?
Not necessarily. You have to think about what's relevant to the situation. So think about relevance to the situation. Fantastic. So, Debbie, are you around?
I'm here.
Excellent. It is time. Let's see who's brave. Someone raise a hand who wants to let me get to know them. Debbie, pick the first one you see.
So, Katya.
Katya. So unlock Katya, please. Can you unmute Katya?
Yep.
All right, Katya, you there?
Hello, hello.
Hi there.
There's a slight lag in the presentation, so I apologize for that.
Hey, no worries. Welcome to technology. Well, thank you for volunteering. Okay, so here's the situation again. As I mentioned, we are at a networking event. I bump into you. I'm an employer that you've been wanting to speak to you. We get to know each other. And then I ask you the questions to go ahead and tell me about yourself. So why don't you go ahead and tell me about yourself, Katya?
So Derek, I'm a creative problem solver who's interested in getting her foot into the legal field. I'm currently completing my education into a major in economics and philosophy, which has greatly helped me structure my arguments and get my legal field social knowledge into play. Recently, we've been coming out of COVID, for example, and I've been following up on Trudeau's handling of recent policies, and I was really hoping to figure out how I can better use my skills as a creative problem solver to help your company understand, laws all around us. And I was hoping that we could have that sometime if you have the time.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Katya. So can you go back to the top? How did you introduce yourself at the beginning? First sentence.
I'm a creative problem solver.
Excellent. So that's a great way to begin. Now, what I did enjoy about what you said there was that, you introduced creative problem solving, and you did introduce your education, but it was right in the middle, right? And it was nicely related to what it is you're speaking about with your goals and law. So I really like that. It actually reminded me a little bit of one of the samples that was in the video I showed, where the one student was able to connect both of their different backgrounds together to make a greater whole. So I really appreciate that. I would say that was a really good introduction for the 5 minutes I gave you to write it. So excellent job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Derek.
Okay, so we also have Kelsey.
Okay, so if you can mute Katya, that'd be great. And we'll go to Kelsey next.
Give me 1 second. Kelsey, are you there?
Hello. Can
Kelsey.
you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Derek.
Hi there. So again, situation. Why don't you go ahead and tell me about yourself?
Absolutely, Derek. The social in the months prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the social sciences has been a field in which I've been extremely fortunate to be a part of. For instance, I was extremely fortunate to have helped out as a volunteer in the food center on campus to ensure that members in the community have access to food, especially during times like these. I was also fortunate to have been a volunteer at the Wellness Center Fair and informing students of the available services on campus that are made to support them in their health and well-being, especially in times like these. And so being able to help others within the social sciences field is something that I'm truly passionate about, and it is something that I would like to continue to do in my career.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Now, what I liked about your introduction there was there's a lot of personal components to it. Now, personal doesn't mean us unprofessional, because sometimes we think, oh, how much personal stuff can I share? If we maintain a focus of professionalism within our personalness, there's nothing wrong with that, because it does show what kind of people that we are. It shows our motivations, and I do appreciate you being able to share some of that. So thank you very much. Your motivations are very clear on what you're looking to do. Appreciate that. Thank you. I think we have one more person. If you can mute Kelsey, that'd be great. I think there's one more person we had.
Yes, we have David, so I'm just going to put him on.
Okay, so we're going to do one more individual there.
Or Devin, sorry. Devin, are you there?
I am, and no problem.
Devin. Hi, Devin.
Hello, Derek. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So what you going to tell me about yourself?
So, I am, sorry, I'll just pull it up 1 second. There we go. I'm an incredibly enthusiastic individual who strongly enjoys working with people. In fact, I've actually been a major fan of national parks all my life, including Grand Rapids, the one you're currently serving as the Visitor Services Manager at. And in the last few years, I actually had this really awesome opportunity to work as a Visitor Services Attendant for Little Canyon, which is a national park in the United States. I had a lot of fun working there, got to work at hundreds of outreach events all across Washington, and it was really gratifying because I loved the work and people, and they were actually very generous and gave me a lot of compliments, which I was lucky to get on my friendliness, respectfulness, and efficiency in meeting their visitor needs. And also, I've been studying history here at UTSC, and I feel that I've picked up a lot of information about the subject, and I just love telling information to people, including about national parks.
Fantastic. You know what, Devin, can you go back? How did you describe yourself at the very beginning? Your first sentence.
Sure. I'm an incredibly enthusiastic individual who strongly enjoys working with people.
Devin, I will agree with you. You're a very enthusiastic individual.
Thank you.
Okay? And what I liked about that was, as I mentioned earlier, right? It's not about what we're saying, it's how we're saying it. And although I can't see you right now, the way you're doing your vocal inflections, your passion, that is, if anything, from your presentation there, that's what really spoke out to me, was the fact that I believed you. Okay?
Good.
And I think that that is an excellent way of presenting, because your personality is speaking through. You said you're enthusiastic, and I'm agreeing that you're enthusiastic about whatever you're about to talk to me about. So that was an excellent, excellent way of presenting yourself. Good job.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We'll go ahead and mute Devin there. Thank you. All right. I appreciate those three taking the chances on that. Now, obviously, didn't have a lot of time to practice. You know, this is a first time trying it, but it is possible for you to be able to present yourselves. So let's wrap up then. What are your next steps? Try your profile with someone else, okay? Hook up with someone online, make an appointment with one of us, but you can go ahead and, you know, try it out. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be at being able to do this. You can book appointments with us to try out all these things, okay? Just to see what it's like. Again, even with interviews, all this, we can do that. Other opportunities, again, when life returns to normal, there's UTSC events, as I mentioned, job fairs, employer meetings, and when life just happens, okay? Because life just happens. We've heard a few testimonies today from our guests and our professionals who said that life just happens. Sometimes they bumped into someone and one thing just happened and there we go, jobs come out of it. So we're at the end of our presentation there. Thank you very much. And I believe Jen's going to pop on here and talk to you about what's happening for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you so much. If we could have a quiet round of applause for Derek, that would be fabulous. I know you're out there clapping for him. And Debbie, thank you so much. Debbie